Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Delara, and I am once again bringing you this episode from our good friends at Rhythm. Rhythm is the number one AI betting tool in the market. Got everything for you. Basketball, football, baseball, whatever, golf even. Whatever you need, Rhythm's got it, and you can get it for a week for free. It's got projections, it has models for sides, totals, props, everything. And it's all at your fingertips. You can get it for a free week with an app. You can also use it on the desktop. I use it every single day in my betting process, and you should too. So I'm giving it to you for 1 week for free. Be sure to check it out down here right below. So I'm going to start off with this episode with a little bit of a victory lap because we all just hit 100 to 1 on Peyton Pritchard to be sixth man of the year. That's a preseason bet on Peyton Pritchard to win sixth man of the year. That is a sick bet. 100 to 1. Just thrilled with it. That's part of why I like to bet futures. I like to extract value on some of these long shots. I think that I'm very good at finding it. And I think I'm generally able to get it to you at better numbers than anybody else. Like, I think that I am first to market with a lot of these things, and that's part of why I have this. That's why part of why I have the huddle, and part of the things that come out through the Action Network as well. So it was a really, really fun bet to hit. It was fun to root for all season long, and you have a couple other futures that are in there that we've talked about on the show as well. So just super, super excited to get 100 to 1 for everybody. It's always nice to get a little bit of cash right now at this time of the season where, I'm asking you to put down all this money on these futures bets. You got to tie up a lot of your liquidity, and you get your bankrolls a little flush with cash right now. So if you made some money on it and you're not a part of the huddle, just join. I'm going to have a little bit of a promo in the bio as well. So you can get the playoff best bets. You can get the series bets, the series leaders, all of that at your fingertips. But I'm imagining if you're listening to this, you probably are a member, but hey, check it out downstairs or down below and hop in there in the huddle. Let me know if you hit on Peyton Pritchard. So let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. I'm not going to go too long on this. I think that there's so much fluidity. I feel like I'm doing a lot of shows too right now, so you're getting a little bit of like extra me. So I don't feel the need to deep dive as far into like every single series, but I do want to touch on some things here. And for the most part, we're seeing not every series at 2 games so far, but we have seen a lot of these series get there. Tonight's games will be the last ones to get to the 2-game mark and then switch to the game 3s. One of the biggest trends in sports, or especially in the NBA right now, is, if you can bet on teams down 0-2 in the first half. So right now you're looking at Milwaukee. This fits Memphis, and it doesn't fit anybody else yet, but it's probably going to fit Miami. It's probably going to wind up fitting Orlando. So basically what you do is if you take them in the first half, it's got an incredible hit rate, very profitable. And the thought process is, well, they might not be good enough to win this game again, but they are going to be home. It is a lot of times the other team's first road game, especially now in the first round. It's their first road game. They don't know what the environment's going to be like. It does give that team a boost, and you're going to come out firing. Your game plan is going to be the tightest it's ever been in the first half of a game 3 at home down 0-2. And, maybe you get to avoid the halftime adjustments if you're bringing out something different, if you're switching up something else like schematically, and the first half is the way to go. So if we looked at this right now, the first half, let's see who has these. I'm imagining Memphis is still a pretty big underdog. This is not the best podcasting right now, but Memphis is an 8.5 point underdog on the game. They're plus, this is the craziest thing. They don't even really have spreads. So Memphis is going to wind up being +4, and then the Bucks are going to probably be -2 because they're -4 on the game. You might see -3. I'm going to want to be betting both of those sides. I think that you generally are seeing these teams coming out firing just to start off the second half, or to start off game 3 in the first half. So that's just one of those trends bets. I'm not the biggest trends better. I'm not the biggest sides or totals better. However, I do think that there is something to be said about the motivation in those spots. It's like the Lakers were down 0-1 at home in game 2, came out firing, and they win that game 94-85. So always something to kind of consider especially with the swing in home court. So just wanted to get that out there as like a little bit of a trends piece before we dive into these game twos on tonight's slate. So the biggest question that we have on tonight's slate is whether or not Jason Tatum is going to play. He's downgraded to doubtful, so I think that there obviously have to be some questions of whether or not he's going to play. This information about his injury is interesting because obviously, like, we saw it happen. It was concerning to watch in the moment, and then he finishes the game. Last year, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, there was a report that came out after the finals that Tatum had been playing with like a broken hand or whatever, wrist. This wasn't like new news. It was something that was known to people. And I remember hearing it and I was like, I'm going to bet his under because like he's not going to shoot well. Fucking next game, he dropped like 40. So sometimes like with some of this news and like some of this information, like I wonder if he sits against Orlando just because they don't really need him. But if he does play, which I think it's possible, I wouldn't be like so keen on betting an under per se. Because honestly, like he had a terrible game shooting the basketball in game one, and it really had nothing to do with the wrist. He wound up like scoring afterwards. He just couldn't make a shot at all the whole game. So the reason I say this is like I've been trying to think about like what do we do with this game? Because Tatum defensively is strong, and I think that you want him on the court to bet like a magic under. At the same time, I don't want to bet like an over because Tatum's offense is then off the court. Granted, he was bad in game one, but still his offense is off the court. And this total has been bet down from in the 200s to like 197 or so, I think. So that's around. So what is my take? I was looking at some of the like assist props because you guys know I like to bet like the series assists and like assists per game type of bet, whatever. And the one thing that stood out to me was that the number one player that sees a jump in his assist rate without Jason Tatum is Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown like doubles almost. So assists per 100 from like 5 to like 9.5 basically. Then you see Derek White takes a pretty big jump. Interestingly enough though, Drew Holiday, it's about 6 per 100 with Tatum, 6.5 without him. So really like no discernible jump, but Drew Holiday is leading in assists right now. So leading the series anyway. And my thought was, I was like, well, like maybe there's something actionable that we can take from that, right? Like, can we find an angle? And if we looked at some of the series player props and you looked at say like the assist leader, I'm going to try to get the current odds now, but basically Tatum was still the series leader as of like this afternoon. So right now, actually, I think they pulled it. MGM pulled it. But I'll just give you guys the cap in case it pops up at some point a little bit later. I'll pull up FanDuel. You know, a book, honestly, well, they're always the best, but 365 almost always leaves these lines up. And they also have more categories for these. Like they'll have steals per game, like steals leader. They'll have blocks leader, which I always think is interesting. But let's see if they have most assists. No, everybody pulled it. But anyway, I'll just give you guys the cap because you guys might want to bet it anyway if he actually is ruled out. Basically, Drew is the favorite and he was like plus 800. Derek White is, next. Not the favorite. Drew is not the favorite. Drew is leading right now with 5, but he's plus 800. Tatum is the favorite and he's projected to miss. Then you have Derek White is 8-1. Jaylen Brown is 18-1. And then Franz, I think, was 5-1, who I think was also a little interesting. Looking at all of that, you have to weigh a couple things. I think Drew makes a little bit of sense at 8-1. I also think Derek White makes some sense, except Derek White only has 2. So I'm not super interested. I don't need to bet into it. But I do think that there is some value because Tatum only has 4 assists. He has not really been an assist machine against Orlando all season anyway. I think there's a decent opportunity for somebody else to be the assist leader, especially when Tatum was the betting, it was even odds to lead the series in assists. So just some food for thought. But from a player prop perspective, I looked at this and I said, well, I'm going to go bet on Derek White. I think that Derek White just came off a great game. He was balling. He put up 30 points. He had 2 assists. Didn't really pass too much, so didn't really need to either. But I think in this particular spot, he would perform well. So I grabbed over 21.5 points plus assists. It's a number he's hit in 51% of games this season. However, when Jason Tatum is out, this jumps to 88%, with the one miss being at 21 PA against, you guessed it, the Orlando Magic. So that was back in December when I believe Jalen Suggs was in that game. So I'll just double check, but Yeah, Jalen Suggs was in that game. So that's really like their best perimeter defender. Derek White sees a ton of usage without Tatum. He is used to set the table for not only himself, but for his teammates. And I think that in this type of playoff setting, we would see longer minutes than we normally would without Tatum. I feel like during the regular season, a lot of the games that Tatum missed, they were strategic games where they were like where the team could kind of rest. This season, he really didn't play a lot of games without Tatum. The toughest games he played without Tatum there were two against Detroit early, one against Orlando, and then another one against Portland. But otherwise, you're looking at Utah, Brooklyn, Phoenix, and Washington. So none of those are the toughest matchup. Obviously, is Orlando back with Suggs, but he didn't get too many opportunities in these games where it's like, oh yeah, we need him to play a lot of minutes. If Tatum isn't able to go, we're going to see him play a ton of minutes. Last game, he played 36 minutes against Orlando. I think that we would probably see about at least another 35-minute effort. So I like this over 21.5 points plus assists for Derek White. I also was looking, if you're interested in a little bit of a heavier juiced prop, I was looking at Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's assist is over 3.5. It's pretty much just a super juiced 3.5. This line is basically bumped up to 4.5 at plus money. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tatum is out. Additionally, he had 2 assists on 7 potentials in game 1. Now, without Tatum on the season, right now, he's hit 3.5 assists in 70% of games. He's averaging 4.5 assists on 8 potentials. Without Jason Tatum, he's over 3.5 assists in all 7 games. And he's averaging 6.3 on 10.3 potentials. So I think you're good on 3.5 almost no matter what, even with the juice. I just don't mind also playing some plus money at the 4.5. There's a plus 126 at Caesars right now. So I don't mind that either. But if you do have one of the Prize Picks accounts, I don't totally understand how they work, but I know that the odds aren't exactly the same. So if you can get a 3.5 right now, you're gonna extract a lot of extra value on that bet on the 3.5, I think. So just something to consider. But Boston, I think, should take care of business here. They are a far better team. I think that they are going to be smothering defensively for Orlando. The one thing that I do think is Boston is very comfortable letting Paolo get whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And I think in large part that has to do with the fact that it's not the most efficient offense. He turns the ball over a bit. He is not shooting and making these shots at a super high clip in terms of the efficiency. And Boston is just more than willing to allow him to take those opportunities. And they're not super worried about it. So we're going to turn to the next game, which is also a double-digit spread with the Heat versus the Cavaliers. And while Cleveland should probably be able to take care of this Miami Heat team, Miami hangs around. They are not a team that is a total dud. And I do think it's relevant that Miami had to play in 3 different cities in all high-pressure games at the end of the season. They had to play 2 play-in games, both on the road as the 10 seed. Then you travel and play the early game against the Cavs, so the number 1 seed. So it's 3 road games, all very highly competitive games. And then you're also playing Cleveland, who is rested, raring to go, probably perfect game plan. Has just gotten to pick apart what you're doing over the last week. And Cleveland just took it to him. I think that Miami, they're not live in the series to win the series, but I do think that they're live in the series to I think to get 5 games out of this, maybe even 6. One player that I do like, and we're going to have a bet on, is Davion Mitchell. I've bet on Davion Mitchell throughout the season. You guys know that. You guys have seen it. And for him to be the assist leader in the series, it's minus 180. So we're not going to bet that now. But what I will say is there is a little bit of value still on his assists in this game and in the series. A 6.5 assist prop is where he's at right now. I actually kind of like the PA. I like the 17.5 PA is what I'm seeing. I was fetching a 16.5 somewhere, but I haven't actually seen it. It doesn't, when I went to go check, it didn't seem to exist. Over the past couple of games, Davion Mitchell has played 33, 40, and 36 minutes. He is getting extended run in large part because when he first came up, his defense was pretty good, but he struggled to score. He struggled as a passer, as a facilitator, and that's kind of developed for him lately. This 17.5 line is one that he has hit in 8 of his last 10 games, including 27 against the Cavs. He had 18 and 9 on 20 potential assists. 20. So I like the idea of the combo prop. I think that he can score decently well. I think that that's a shot that Cleveland's just going to live with. Like they'd rather Mitchell take some threes, put up 12 shots in that game, didn't get to the free throw line. So he's not like a huge free throw guy, but he usually can get there, maybe get to the stripe, for maybe 2 or 4 free throw attempts. So definitely something to kind of keep in mind there. But I do think there's plenty of upside for him in PA. And I also think that I would try to do like why not? Just do a little double, sprinkle it. The number is going to be great. You're going to be getting like 9-1 maybe if you build it out, maybe even longer than that. So he really hasn't had a ton of doubles this season. He's had 1, but he has had double-digit assists twice this season. So not a ton. He does tend to get stuck at this 8.5. So he tends to get stuck at 9, but with 20 potentials, I do think that there's a little bit of value in betting on Davion Mitchell to go over that line in this game. So not Donovan Mitchell, but Davion Mitchell. The last game that we've got here is the Warriors versus the Rockets. This should be a pretty tight game. The spread has moved towards the Rockets. Rockets open to -1. We're seeing some -3s, -3.5s. I think the Rockets are the side here. Must-win game, similar to how the Lakers were at home after dropping game 1. You really got to win this one before you go on the road. And Houston has played some of these better teams well all year. They've played the Warriors tough. It's been... I think this is going to be a tight series. And if I think it's going to be a tight series, I kind of got to think that Houston's going to win today. So I like Houston in this game. I think that they have some ability to bounce back in large part too. Like Fred VanVleet couldn't make a shot. Jalen Green couldn't make a shot. So they took a ton of the usage out of the Rockets offense, and they didn't really get a lot to show for it. I think that Fred VanVleet, was 2 for 14 from 3. It's terrible. Or 2 for 13 is terrible. Some of that, I think, is due to the defensive pressure from the Warriors, but also sometimes the shots just don't fall. It obviously makes it tough. Something to consider there. But at the same time, I still like Steph Curry. I'm grabbing over 30.5 points plus rebounds. There's a 29.5 out there actually at Rivers if you can get it, or if you can get down on it. I struggle immensely trying to get down at Rivers, so there's that. But just looking at Curry even recently, he's crushed this number in some of these pseudo play-in or playoff or play-in games. So 39 against the Clippers, 45 against the Grizzlies, 37 in game 1. The rebound chances were there for him in this last game. He had 12 rebound chances against Houston in that last time out. So I think that that's something that's notable. The thing about Curry and why I like adding rebounds, and I've talked about this before, but I'm just going to keep saying it, is in the playoffs, Steve Kerr likes Curry to be able to get some of these rebounds, especially on the defensive end, and get kick-started into transition for the Warriors. He is able to then create for himself. He's able to get the defense in disarray. And he's actually, I think, he's a more viable option running the fast break than anybody else, specifically because of the fact that he can pull up from anywhere. It creates max chaos because you have to have multiple players closing out on him pretty much at all times because he can pull up from almost the logo. So what it does is normally a lot of times when players on defense are trying to get back on a fast break, they're not super worried about having to defend the 3-point line. But if they're the last guy and it's Curry, you almost have to. And what that does is it opens up some additional passes for him. It opens up some additional options for him and for the Warriors, and where he can dish it to somebody else that can maybe kick it back to him, whatever. But I love the rebounds for Curry in the playoffs. It's something that they don't do too much of during the regular season because the games don't really matter. But we see his rebounding numbers tick up every single postseason because this is just what they do. And it's a strategy that they just do not need to employ during the regular season. And we've seen it over and over and over again where it's not just a coincidence anymore. It's on purpose. And Curry is one of the primary beneficiaries of this from a rebounding perspective. So I'm going to grab over 30.5 points plus rebounds. If you can get to 29.5 at Rivers or Sugar House, by all means, please do. Thinking about some of these other series, though, I just wanted to touch on a couple things. Number one, the Knicks and the Pistons. This is one of the most frustrating series I've ever had to watch just because there's such a lack of 3-point shooting from New York, specifically from Karl Anthony Towns. And like, I think it's Cat to a degree, like it's his fault, but it's also like, I just don't understand. Just pass the ball to him. So, or like let him shoot threes and he just doesn't do it. And the spacing's bad. You have Brunson like driving to the interior, and then you have like 8 dudes cutting at the same time. It's a mess. Like, I don't like what I'm seeing offensively, and I do think, as much as I like Tibbs, I do wonder, is there going to be like, is he coaching for his job right now? Is there going to be a change even if they advance here and they just get shellacked by Boston? Like, you probably got to do something else. You can't really change the roster too much. So like, what else do you do? So curious to see that. I am also going to be looking for what the whistle is going to look like. Tibbs was kind of complaining about the whistle. I know that people were like, oh, well, like the Pistons and the Knicks still basically took the same amount of free throws. There's like 2 different. It's more about the fact that like the Knicks probably should have had more called on them. We'll have to see. I do think if you can get the free throws made market for Brunson, though, I'd bet that. I get that it's going to be a home game for Detroit. I just don't think it matters. Like Brunson his usage is insane. It's getting close to like 40%. It is preposterous. So if you can get like his free throws made line, maybe like 5.5, 6.5, I don't mind that. I think it's definitely a look. The Nuggets and the Clippers. I'm so glad that LA won that game because that's helpful for us for over 5.5 games. We need each team to win at least one more to cash that. And I thought it was interesting because Matt Moore wrote like a really good article on his Substack, and he was talking about how during the postseason teams like make adjustments, and you can do things that don't always make sense in the playoffs because you have to play like you're basically playing chess in a lot of these series, especially like the close ones. So some of it's just that like can't, because he basically was talking about, he asked Ty Lue a couple questions and he asked the Nuggets coaching staff a couple questions, but basically it's like you can't do everything for 48 minutes. Like there's certain things you can't do for 48 minutes. So like one of those is like, let's say like hypothetically like Kawhi on Jokic or whatever. Maybe it might work for like a minute. It might work for a possession or two, but it's untenable over the course of an entire game, let alone an entire series. So you do need to experiment with some random things at times throughout the series. And it changes the way that you have to think about betting on some of these games. Because when you look at like player props, right? A lot of times like I'll look at something and be like, this is a great matchup for this player. Like they should crush. And when the teams play like over and over again in the same series, you have to look at it and you're like, well, are they going to do something different? In the regular season, no. Teams just don't really care. They're just like, we're going to run our thing that like, we're going to run our regular rotations. We're going to run our regular players out there. We're going to run our regular game plan, and we're not going to do anything nuanced. Because why do we want to like spill that to this team that we might be seeing in the playoffs? Like, why do we want to give them any film on that or any inkling that that's something we're like practicing or preparing to do? In the playoffs, you kind of have to do it. This is when you have to do it. You can see different things happening that change a matchup or change how much a player is used in a particular role. If you looked at the Clippers and the Nuggets series, game 1, I'm just going to read this right out of what he said. In game 1, the Nuggets put Gordon on Kawhi Leonard. Leonard just tried to put him in the pick and roll, get a switch. Denver blitzed him, and they forced bad passes and some resets. In game 2, Denver was like, well, we're going to do the same thing. And they started with Jamal Murray on him. And Kawhi just goes crazy. He hits a quick 3, jumper's going, he's in a rhythm. So then even then when Gordon's on him, just doesn't really matter. So Matt said in game 1, Kawhi was 2 of 3 with 3 turnovers with Gordon as his assignments. And in game 2, he was 7 of 8 against Gordon with no turnovers. You got to see the matchup a couple times. So something that works in game 1 won't always work in game 2, especially if you let them get into that rhythm, right? So you're trying to always do different things to keep your opponent off balance, but you also don't want to over adjust. Because if you over adjust, then like it's something that probably was, I'll put it this way. If you make an over adjustment, it's probably not something that is optimal for you. Otherwise, you probably would have just been doing it consistently over the course of the regular season. If you have to make the adjustment during the playoffs, it's like, well, there's probably a weakness here somewhere. Let's just hope we can get through like half a game even, or maybe a full game and see what happens. So it changes the way you have to bet on player props because there's so many things happening. There's so many moving pieces. I think in game one, you can get away with using some of the older data. You can say like, all right, well, during the regular season, these teams did X, or these players did X, Y, and Z when they faced each other. But as games like 2 and 3 and 4, and then especially 5, 6, and 7 come, there are things that you can't do anymore. And one of the things that I was talking about with Matt and Jim offline about was, say, like Chris Dunn. And Chris Dunn is somebody that I bet the over on last game. I bet over, I had 10.5, but we also gave out 11.5 PRA. And I liked it because I was like, I think that he's important defensively. He's going to spend minutes on the court. He's going to play meaningful minutes. He's trusted. And, he's going to, just by virtue of being on the floor, he's going to pick up RNA. And my thought was, well, I think that they're going to leave him open to shoot some threes. And I think he's like a decent enough shooter that he can get 6 points, maybe 5, like whatever. He's going to at least get 3. And if he makes more, then great. This bet's a no-brainer. Like we're going to cash no matter what. On the flip side, though, it's entirely possible that, you watch the game and you're like, oh boy, he is not making those threes. Like maybe he does take a lot of threes. Maybe he eventually gets there. Maybe it's 11.5 and he finally gets to like 13, like kind of like last game. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that he couldn't make a shot. He wasn't shooting as well as he did in game 1. Now in game 2, if the Nuggets stress that as a point even more, and they're like, we're just going to leave you open. I know he's going to have the opportunity, but like now you really got to make these. Otherwise, you're about to be unplayable. And I think it's one of those things where if you're not really watching the games, you might not totally understand some of those like little nuances, right? And even then, like let's say he makes the shots. How many does he have to make before Denver goes, well, all right, I guess we should probably cover that. Like this isn't plus EV anymore. Because if he goes like 3 for 10, all right, like whatever. It's below average, right? 30% from 3 would be below average. You'd live with that every time. And it'll hit the prop for us. It'll help us get there. But if he's not going like 3 for 7, maybe 3 for 8, it's probably a good trade for Denver. So you have to think about some of the things that you're actually watching from like a basketball perspective. And you go, well, like, I don't know if that's going to work. And that's part of why I try to not go back to the well too much. I do think that, sometimes you can, sometimes the line won't move like too bad from one game to the other, or there's some other value that you can derive from the action or your angle. But I try not to go back too much because you really need to like watch the games and say like, okay, well, this team did this. And I think that the way that they would react or like how they could react is X. And, I also think it's important too, like when you're doing some of these analyses and you're saying, well, like, I think this player is going to play at least 20 minutes. Well, like, what do you think their ceiling is? Like, you have to figure in, like, with the Nuggets or with the Clippers are a good example, or probably a better example with Kawhi and Harden and Norm. How many minutes is anybody else? And Zoo, how many minutes is anybody else going to get? Oh, there's a finite amount of minutes. And it's like, you think he's going to play 40? Probably not. So, like, maybe you need to check between, like, 20 and 30 minutes for his minutes bracket. So that way you can get, like, a better idea of, like, what to project him at. Chris Dunn, that is. So long story short is every game is different, even though the matchup seemingly is the same. And you have to consider that every single time that you're betting into these markets. So something that worked in game 1 isn't always even going to be there in game 2. It's something that could have been adjusted to at halftime. And sometimes you can notice if there's like a slight change in like a game plan in the second half, or like maybe late in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter, maybe it's like kind of a blowout. Sometimes that's like not an accident. They're trying to see if there's something there and they're using it as almost like practice on the fly. Don't be surprised to see that then starting the next game where maybe some of that can transfer over. So just some food for thought, something to consider, but like it's so much more nuanced than just, oh, well, when these teams played before, this is how it happened. This is what happened. This is what worked. And this is what we're going to do. So that's my thoughts so far. I do think that this first round has been extremely competitive for the most part. Obviously, some of these series are duds, but that's just the nature of the beast. And we will do our best to keep bringing you some of this great content. But for Pods and Recs, I should have started the show with this. I'm an idiot. So I didn't know, like I didn't really realize, but today, Wednesday, is Administrative Professionals Day. So you should get your secretary or whatever. Like you have to get them something. Like get them at least like a gift card to somewhere. I didn't know this until like today or yesterday because there was a conversation with some of the people at my job, and there was like, oh, like what are you gonna get? Like your secretary. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So now I know, and had to put something together. And, I was like, hopefully this is good. We'll see what we're doing. We're shooting from the hip a little bit. So my recommendation is to do that if you need to do that. And then next is I wore shorts today. It was fucking amazing. I'm so happy. It was the best. Like I was like, I'm back, baby. Highly recommending breaking your shorts out. It is getting to be that season. And like maybe you gotta do a couple calf raises too. Like make sure the calves aren't like too out of shape, out of style. So make sure you get those going, and just do the best that you can. Enjoy some of the good weather right now because you never know like how long it's going to be here. You never know when it's going to turn. So get outside. I ate dinner outside today. It was wonderful. Highly recommend. But yeah, so this episode again was brought to you by our good friends at Rhythm, #1 AI betting tool in the market. Get a free trial right down below, and you can get a discount on your first month as well. Just come back next week, get that link, and you can just continue to use it to help you with all of your daily betting needs. So really enjoyed this. I will be on Coast to Coast on Thursday night. We're going to have Brian Fonseca join me again. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we will talk some more of the games, some more of the things that we've seen. And that's why I was like, I don't want to go too in detail here. It's just isn't really necessary when I'm getting to see you guys multiple times in the same week. Don't have as much that I need to cover, and we can talk about a little bit more of what we're actually seeing on a nightly basis. So glad to have you. Keep those bets up. Do some betting outside in shorts and continue to cash that.